Hello and welcome to another episode of Leader's Kitchen. Tonight we are going to be cooking a basic lasagna. As most Italian meals do, they start with the three main vegetables, which are onions, celery and carrots. We're going to finely dice those up and sweat them off, and then we're going to add some meat. Tonight we're going to use a beef and pork mince mix. Bit nicer than just plain beef, because plain beef is a bit too rich, whereas the pork gives it quite nice. A selection of herbs and tomatoes, tinned tomatoes, and we'll go from there. Okay, let's crack on with some veg prep, and I need a knife. So let's start with the onions. All we're going to do with these is finely dice these onions. So these are quite small onions, so hence why I've got 3 of them. If you had large onions, you could just use 1 large onion or 2 medium ones. As these are very small, we're going to do 3 small onions. So, right, what we're going to do is put the pan on a reasonably high heat, flat out for the moment. Oh, wrong one. Right, we're going to put the pan on to heat now. So put the pan on a high heat to start with. Need to get it warm before we put the veg in. Right, pan's starting to get up to temperature now. Let's put some oil in. Don't need much oil at all, just a good teaspoon. So you can see there's not much oil in there at all. So, and into there with the veg. So just reasonably finely slice up the garlic. Put the garlic in. Only going to go in for a minute or so. Oh, they're steaming up. Well steamed up today. So what I'm going to do now is take all of this mixture that's softened down quite nicely, take it out of the pan, put it to one side. Doesn't matter if you don't get everything out of the pan, because the next bit we're going to do in this pan still, and that's fry the meat off. So in with the meat. This does 2 things. It browns the meat, so it gives you a richer, darker sauce, and also drives off some of the fat that's going to be in this meat that we don't really need to eat. I'm going to make a mess of my nice clean hob. Right, let's wash my hands. In here, see the meat's starting to brown now. Might need to turn the heat up a little bit. Just realised I need something out of the other room. So as you can see, there's quite a bit of fat coming out of this meat. And that's partly because it's a mixed beef and pork. So if you have time, I would recommend roasting your minced beef in the oven. This gives it a really nice nutty flavour, and a lot darker. First of all, when you first do it, you think, oh, it's never going to brown. It'll go brown, it'll go this colour in its own juice, and then all of a sudden, after about 35-40 minutes, it becomes really dark and rich. But today we're just midweek, going to just cook it out quickly. Haven't got time to play around roasting it separately, letting it cool, and go from there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do an experiment. We've cooked off 750 grams of fat, and I'm going to pour off 750 grams of meat. I'm going to pour off and see how much fat there is. So if I can get the camera to come down. So here we go. Let's pour off this fat. See how much there is. Quite amazing amount there. So put that back on. So that is how much fat? So we've got 200 mils, or what's that at? 7 ounces, just over 3/4 of a cup of fat, and a little, if you look at the bottom there, a little amount of gravy. We can get that off by solidifying the fat or pouring the fat off. So back to the main pan, back on the heat, relatively high heat. Just give it a little bit more frying, and into that's going to go 2 things before we put the veg back in. First of all, a bit of tomato puree. So good splurge of tomato puree. So that's probably a good couple of tablespoons of tomato puree there. Cook that into the meat. So it takes the slight tartness out of the tomato puree and cooks in the flavour a bit more. So, and the next one is a good glug of red wine, so about a glass full. So we've got a good Cabernet Sauvignon here. So good slug of red wine. So on a high heat, it's going to cook off, and we want to basically take all of that moisture out. So we drive off the alcohol and reduce that down quite a long way. So we don't want a too wet a mix. Whilst doing that, I'm going to open the tomatoes. Straight into the recycling. Oh. Right, you can really taste the alcohol in the air at the moment. That's almost gone. So almost no liquid left there at all. Now you can squeeze a little bit out if you squeeze the meat, but don't need to do that. So, okay, back in with the veg. Then in with the tomatoes. So these are peeled plum tomatoes. You see they're still whole rather than the chopped ones. Top tip, the whole ones are a higher grade than the chopped ones usually. So you get a slightly better tomato with the whole ones. So basically break them up. You can squeeze these in your hands if you like. It's good fun. The only issue is you can get splurges like that of tomato seeds all down your front, and then you've got to try and get it out of your clothes. Never a good thing. So into this now, I'm going to put some seasoning. So dash of Italian mixed herbs. I then also like to boost it up with a good dash of, or sprinkling of oregano. And then one secret ingredient I like, Worcester sauce. Give it a good shake and a good slug of Worcester sauce in. Give that a stir. Oh, I've got one more herb, and that's bay leaf. Normally with the bay leaf I'll go outside and grab one off my bay plant, but the weather's not very nice out there and I'm only in my slippers. So in here for some dried ones. So these are only small ones, so a couple of bay leaves in the mix. Done with those. I can go back in there here. So that's a basic meat ragu. Be great with pasta, any type of pasta. So you could do tagliatelle, spaghetti. We're going to do lasagna tonight, so turn that down. If you've got time, the longer you cook it, the better it's going to be. So if you can leave it a good couple of hours, the better. However, tonight we're going to be basically cooking this and eating it straight away. We haven't got time, so this is our dinner tonight. So let me have a quick tidy up. Next main part of the lasagna is going to be a white sauce. Start the white sauce with making a roux. Easiest recipe, one of the easiest recipes I know, and it starts with butter and flour. about, what are we going to do, 1.5 ounces. Oh, that's close. 1 3/8 ounces there. Oh, 3/4. Right, 1 3/4 ounces of butter. Put it onto a relatively low heat to melt. What we need now is to measure some flour, and that's going to be the same, 1 3/4 ounces. So we'll get a spoon. Let's have a quick taste of the meat sauce, see if we need anything in there. Needs a good pinch of salt. Some black pepper. Back to where we were after a little camera mishap there. So we have some melted butter. So turn the heat up a little bit on there. Into there goes flour. And with that we need to stir it. Need to cook the flour for about a minute or two just to take the rawness off the flour. So, and this is a roux, basic roux. You can use it to thicken sauces, make white sauce. If you make it with, which is what we're doing today, if you make it with a stock, it becomes a velouté. So very versatile. So if you're going to use this to mix and thicken the stock, what you do is you take this out, let it cool, and then just put a teaspoon in at a time into the sauce. Right, get some milk. So what we have here is about 3/4 of a pint, well just under 3/4 of a pint of milk, about 350-400 mils of milk. So what we do is we put a little bit in, incorporate that, make sure you get into the corners of the pan. So you see it's taken up all that milk already. So once you get to this stage, spoon is not the best thing to use. That's a whisk. It's the best thing to use. Let's use a whisk and get it out of the tub. So this gets rid of all the lumps, hopefully. Still looks a bit lumpy at the moment, but don't worry, it will go. The lumps will disappear if you whisk it. Remember, this is only on a medium heat at the moment. You can see most of the lumps are gone now. So turn it up a little bit to a medium-high heat. Give this meat a stir. Now this is going to be a basic white sauce. Normally I'd put a lot of cheese in this, but we're not going to tonight. Nutmeg, where's the nutmeg? There's the nutmeg. So into this I like to put a few rasps of nutmeg. Try not to drop the whole nutmeg in. So there's only a few little rasps of nutmeg. Into the sauce, give it a stir. Starting to thicken quite nicely now. So need to season it a little bit. A little pinch of salt. If you like, a little bit of black pepper. So there's going to be a little bit in there now. So back with a spoon, get right into the corners, make sure nothing's stuck to the edge of the corners. So there we go, it's almost there now. There we go, I can go off, that's just about boiling. There we go, it's starting to boil now. So we don't need it to boil too much. So it's turned off, you can leave it over the ring for the moment. A little bit thick still, a bit too thick, possibly. If it's a bit too thick, this looks so it's reasonable. If it's too thick, you can always put a little drop more milk in. Make sure you whisk it in. So you can always, with a spoon, you can make a path in it. Whoop. Show you again. That's a little thick now, but for a white sauce for a lasagna, that's not the end of the world if it's too thick. So, right. So these are dried lasagna sheets. They work quite well. There's no need to pre-cook these at all. Do this without getting white sauce everywhere. So, and tonight I'm going to go and try and do a fair few layers. Normally I only do 2 or 3 layers, but tonight I'm going to have a go at doing a bunch. So first layer is a bit of white sauce. All this does is lubricate things on the bottom of the pan. So next, try not to get the bay leaves in. Is a thin layer of ragu. So these, I know from experience, just because this is a slightly round edged bowl, if you see there, the lasagna sheets fit in quite nicely in the middle, but not at the corners. So we need to snap the corners off. Like so. Gets into the corner then. Like so. There we go. First layer done, and just keep repeating. So this is just ordinary cheddar. We quite like a strong cheese, so we're using a extra mature cheddar. Where's the grater gone? So, grated cheese over the top. So with that, put that on a baking tray. It's quite full, just so it doesn't. If it does boil over, it doesn't make too much of a mess. So into the oven we go. That needs to go in for about 25-30 minutes, and we'll have a look at it. Then what we're looking for is a nice golden crust on the top. Right, it's been about 30 minutes, so let's have a quick look at lasagna. I think that's about ready. So there we go, we'll leave that to stand for a couple of minutes and then we'll serve. So let's serve this up. So we don't need huge portions. Let's hold on to this. So